burst in the door, and she's, having sex, and so she was actually getting raped, and she said, well, if rape is inevitable, you might as well enjoy it, because he was all mad at her. And she said, well, I didn't know you were coming to rescue me. I figured, So it's kind of like that. So we're in this scenario, it's like the chicken and the egg. Is this consensual? Is it an agreement we made before? But most people, they realize they can't control it. And when they start to relax and enjoy it, so to speak, like they get more information. And then the more you're relaxed about it, the more that they let you know. So that's what Pre's research and different, I work with a lot of hypnotherapists. It's like, okay, well, let's just relax into it. And they go from this, total fear, like the cat at the bed, the dog at the bed, to, okay, it's just the bed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they really want to relax people over time, and that's probably part of their MO. And one thing I found out through talking to people and from my own experiences that THeresa was interested in, I want to be sure and mention it, is that the reason you don't remember these experiences, or at least for the most part, is that they split your personality at a young age with most abductees, and they have one personality for when you're with them and one personality for when you're down here. And the memories are still there, but they're on a different personality track. It's like the movie Total Recall, where the agency split Arnold's personality into Quaid and Hauser. And,
very good point. I like that. Go ahead.
They may communicate through the subconscious, but there's not a lot of contact between the two.
And we work with people to reintegrate the subpersonalities, and Dr. Sal and Sidra Stone, they're Jungian psychologists, and they say everybody has subpersonalities. You have your parent-child, your intellect, your inner mother, father. All these things exist in everybody, and I think it's a natural thing for humanity. But the government or the powers that be or the extraterrestrials, they know how to split, and then sometimes these experiences just create trauma and PTSD. So people split, and they have coping mechanisms to deal with a society that doesn't accept this phenomenon, and that splits you right there. So how can I go back and talk to, my parents that I've been abducted by aliens or whatever? It starts very young. And so you just kind of split and you suppress, and then if you get it and work with a very good hypnotherapist, somebody that's trained in trauma and PTSD and helping you to reintegrate your subpersonalities and develop what's called an aware ego, and then you can, once you're aware of the subpersonalities, then you can switch into them. Then you get integrated, and you're able to accept things from a neutral space, kind of neutral space, and then you can step into the trauma and start and process and reprogram, and then step back into your center and reintegrate and keep working on retrieving these little subpersonalities and lost parts of your soul. And then so that's what I did when I met Dr. Lessin in 97. We just started to work on my subpersonalities, because early on I went to study with Dr. Sal and Sidra Stone, and they had identified 18, and they just said, enough, can't keep going. So, yeah.
Well, I guess in theory, if you reintegrated them all, you'd remember everything that your other personalities remembered without having to be hypnotized or anything like that, right?
Well, there's still memory that you deal with memory. I mean, I don't remember everything in this life, right?
Well, yeah, no memory is perfect, but I mean, you'd have access more, right?
But I do have more. I do, yes. And so, and there's a matter of time. So I'll have I call it discrete memory, but that might not be an accurate analogy of it. But it's like I'll have a critical incident, and there's something I remember. I'll say, well, I remember, the time this gray alien was put on my bed, and then I'll say, Sasha, and I'll call Dr. Lessin, would you like to facilitate me? And I'm going to go into that incident and see if I get more details. So I'm continually doing that because there's so many things. It's like the Russian dolls, and they're packed on top of each other. But, sometimes I just want to go back and remember, something happened with my mother, and I only remember this part, and can we go and look at that incident with my mother or something, So it's a good tool. That's why I married my hypnotherapist, my psychotherapist, because I had such a complicated, and he loved it. He's like, I never met anybody like you.
Saves a lot of money, too,
I'm very
right?
open. Well, it certainly does. Saves a lot of money to marry you. But I've got my own, I can do hypnotherapy as well, and I've worked with thousands of people. He brought me in early on to work with people, so I have 22 years of experience right now. But I've taken that.
You've got a good phone there, Steve. I can hear you breathing. So I had to learn this from some of my people coming on my radio show on landlines is just when you're not speaking, drop the part that you speak into below your chin possibly so we don't hear you breathing so hard.
All right.
That's okay, just because it's something that I like to archive is historically as a traveler or observer or, soul out there coming and playing on the ground, people that listen to this will, hear that because I've had people tell me to stop breathing in my phone. I didn't even know I was doing it. So
we just
I finally learned.
Maybe it helped.
I guess so. Yeah, I could really hear you while Janet was talking, breathing in a while ago. But tell us about this. Do you know anything about the space elevator scale, or have you heard about that, or anything to do with spaceward? Oh, you do.
Actually,
you do know
space
about
elevator. The space elevator is possible in theory on Earth, barely, but carbon nanotubes or carbon fibers are the only material strong enough to do it. To have a high enough strength to weight ratio to make that possible. If you had carbon nanotubes that were perfect enough and had few enough defects to come close to the theoretical strength. So far, we haven't been able to make them nearly as strong as they should be in theory because they have too many defects. But
I'm impressed
that I'm sure will change.
Because I'm impressed with your knowledge that you would even know about this space elevator. I've never, a lot of people think they know everything, but they don't. So, but to hear you, and folks, he did not send me any questions, Q&As, or, how a lot of radio shows they tell you to send, what you want to talk about, but we don't necessarily do that. And this was just thrown at him. He could have said, no, what are you talking about? But brilliant. Thank you, Steve. How in the world did you learn about space elevators?
Well, I'm into carbon nanotubes heavily as a professional thing, and I worked in that field for like 8 years and 10 years, and I still study it a lot and do consulting on it, and so I know about it from that point of view. And I also am a very strong amateur space enthusiast and know everything about everything that I can find on the internet or in books about space travel, rockets, anti-gravity propulsion, space-related physics, astronomy, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Have you seen the scale or map from Dr. Robert Wood or William Tompkins? Were you allowed to see well, I just thought since you knew about space elevators, in general, so are you up on the latest on intelligence of what's been allowed to soft disclosure or not? Just since you're talking about space elevators and staying up, I don't know where
William
you are
Tompkins
on that.
Doesn't really ring a bell, but what specifically do you mean?
I just wonder. That's okay. We can go there later. So I'll stick to nanotechnology. I just wanted to see where you were on, what's out to the public right now since we're recording this. But this is live, folks, and I invite a lot of people to tune in. So thank you if you listened to us before or you're coming on board. We hope to bring in 2019 information you may or may not know about in our soft disclosure program. And I've asked Steve Colbern to participate with us, and you can go and join us if you'd like to join our ACO Association, or UFO Association, and then we also have alien hunters. And I'm asking Steve, being that he worked with Dr. Leir, Roger Leir, and has met Daryl Sims to be number 2, and he agreed that I could use alienologist. So that term fits you fine, doesn't it, Steve, an alienologist?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know a lot of things that I recall the aliens telling me during these experiences. Sometimes I don't know exactly when or where I heard it. I just know what I know, if that makes any sense. Good.
Well, I'm really curious about your interactions. I'm trying to pull it up here. You have a report on the characteristics of gray aliens. There, I was reading this while I'm finding out it's a download. Sorry, it took a little while. And I'm going to be putting this up, or part of it up, on the website. So you have a report on the characteristics of gray alien human hybrids, and then you have a report of your own abduction experience. Do you want to share a little bit with us about what happened to you personally? And then you have these gray alien, middle stage hybrid, late stage hybrid. Explain what all that means. That'd be great to hear.
Well, you guys asked for anything that I've written on the subject, so I just thought I'd include that.
Yes.
And I originally wrote the hybrid report for Barbara Lamb. She asked me what I knew about hybrids, and I just wrote her a report, and I included everything that I knew or thought I knew about alien hybrids that I'd learned from my interactions with the aliens. And I think I started these experiences at day one or before day one. My mom was apparently pregnant with twins when she was pregnant with me, and then about the 5th month, one of them disappeared. So I may have a twin brother out there someplace. I'm thinking, but the doctor was sure she was pregnant with twins, and one of them disappeared. And I remember early on seeing UFOs both in Arkansas, where I used to live, and here in this house where I grew up. When I was 5 years old, I remember a sighting where one was a UFO glowing bright yellow, about 50 feet in diameter, was hovering over our roof about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I passed out and had a vague memory of something being shoved up my nose, and woke up around 8 o'clock. The sun was up, and I had a lot of blood down the front of me, and that was very similar to the implant experience, brain implant experience that Whitley Strieber described in the book Communion, and I think that one's probably still there to this day. They told me that particular implant is to enable them to hear through your ears and see through your eyes and generally access the subject's sensory information. So, in my opinion, with many abductees, the aliens are seeing and hearing what they're seeing and hearing in real time. So if you're talking to an abductee, you're talking to them directly. I had a lot of UFO sightings growing up, and then it kind of died down until I was in my 20s, and then I had more UFO sightings, missing time experiences. I had one with my first wife driving along Highway 40 at night around 1987, where about 10 o'clock at night I looked at the clock in the car, and what seemed like 30 seconds later I looked at the clock again, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going, what the heck? And I stopped at the next town to make sure that that was accurate, that there wasn't something wrong with the clock. And indeed, 3 hours had passed that we couldn't account for. I had some conscious memories a few weeks later of that incident, and then I recalled it fully when I got regressed for the first time. And that was quite disturbing, actually, when I first remembered what was going on. But after a while, I kind of got used to the idea, and after the shock wore off, and it helped, or has helped, to know at least the bare bones of what it is that I do during the experiences. when I got married again, I told my second wife that there was a high probability that I was an abductee, and she didn't believe me. But then a bunch of weird stuff started happening when we started having children. She said I was missing from the house several